Ready, steady, roll.
No country has ever prospered that failed to put its own interests first. Both our friends and our enemies put their countries above ours. And we, while being fair to them, must start doing the same. We will no longer surrender this country or its people to the false song of globalism. The nation state remains the true foundation for happiness and harmony. I am skeptical of international unions that tie us up and bring America down.
Hello and welcome to Right Now, the official podcast of New Right Network. I'm your host, the War of the Fanboys, and with me today is DeAnna Lorraine. DeAnna is author of Making Love Great Again, and
Yeah.
a little bit of a mouthful there, and partner with New Right Network. DeAnna, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here on a Friday night.
Yeah, what better Friday night than hanging out, chit-chatting on a podcast, am I right?
Absolutely, especially about these kinds of topics because I'm passionate about it and I love hearing Trump's voice at the beginning of the podcast. It's always fun.
Fantastic. DeAnna, so you are a relationship expert, is that right?
Yes, I'm a relationship and dating coach. That's how I started my business about 8 years ago.
Fantastic. DeAnna, tell us, so how did you get into this? This seems like such a nuanced sort of career to fall into. How does one get involved? How does one become a relationship and dating coach?
I know, right? So basically it all started on a dark and stormy night. Well, my parents got divorced. Okay. It's kind of a sad story. When I was 8 years old, my parents got divorced, and that was really difficult on me as a child. And then as I grew up, more marriages around, my friends that I grew up with in school, their parents were getting divorced. And I just started seeing the downfall of relationships around us, and the breakup of the family unit just started. I felt like people just were throwing away relationships and marriages at a dime, and not really valuing that anymore. And I always looked to my grandparents because they had this beautiful marriage, 63 years, they're soulmates. They did not have a perfect relationship by any means, but it was perfectly imperfect, and they committed for life. And I always envied that, and I always wanted that. And so growing up, I also have 4 brothers, so very male dominated family. And just kind of became the unofficial guru or coach of my brothers, hearing all their girl problems and dating problems. And then with my friends, it just kind of became a natural, I don't know, I was so fascinated with relationships and dating and how to make them work and how to make them thrive that it was a hobby, like a hobbit. It was a passion and a hobby that I was very interested in and I would always read about. And then it just became a natural fit. I was like, why don't I make this my career? So I got into, being a dating coach for people, for men and women to improve their dating lives and get into relationships. And I was in the pickup artist world for a while and helping men and women, pick up each other and attract each other successfully. And then I realized over the last few years that that relationships are really, men and women aren't even connecting, even with the help of a dating coach. It's hard to connect these days. And I was just really noting the deterioration of just that men would, how sexual it's to commit. And then there's feminism, and then there's all these other political issues that came up. So that's what really inspired me to write this book.
All right, yeah, I want to ask, how does you're known as the Redpilled relationship coach, and your book Making Love Great Again is obviously a reference to Make America Great Again. How does Donald
Yeah.
Trump and the MAGA movement and the Red Pill movement fit into all of this?
Well, I started talking about this about a year ago. I would say that's when I really came out of the closet, the PC closet. And I realized that no one is talking about these issues. You know, other dating and relationship coaches and therapists, they would just skate around issues because for your it's just like no conversation. Social justice warriors are contributing to the ruin of relationships and this bogus toxic masculinity, and then how our American values are declining. And they are, you know, the American values that we once had that made our country so great also made our families and relationships great too. And they're directly intertwined with the downfall of our relationships. So I really, why I'm red pill is because I started on this red pill journey and became a real truther a few years ago, and I couldn't keep my mouth shut anymore. I'm like, I have to talk about this in public, and no one wants to talk about it. It's very uncomfortable for a lot of people to talk about, or they're afraid to, you know, their careers are going to be ruined. Then future are
All right, DeAnna. Unfortunately, we're getting a little bit. We're getting a little bit of breakup. I think. Are
oh
you?
no,
Yeah, yeah. Are you currently on a wireless connection?
I am, yes. Is it pretty bad?
Yeah. We lost. I don't know. Maybe you cut out maybe 20 seconds there. Unfortunately.
Okay, let me try to watch. I'm getting a little bit more better service. Hold on. If it gets bad, I can also call back from my laptop.
All right. Perfect. Maybe even spin the laptop up while we're chatting,
Sure,
just as a
sure.
backup, just in case we do have further
Perfect.
issues.
Yes, yes, yes.
But
Okay.
so you seem. Do you believe that the family unit is an important part of American values?
Yes, absolutely. And it was one of the things that we had, you know, that people would visit America, you know, in the 1950s or the 1940s or earlier, and they would say, wow, the family unit is unmatched. You know, in any other part of the world, American family unit is unmatched. And even the marriage dynamic, you know, people actually did marry for love in America, but as well as partnership. And, you know, now, and the family unit was the most important unit of society, and everyone knew that. And now it's just totally been corroded, and liberalism has been destroying the family unit, you know, and completely undermining it.
And why do you think it is that liberalism and cultural Marxism seem so opposed to this family unit and the traditional or the nuclear family, as some might know it?
Well, it's, and I actually write about this a lot in my book about Marxism. You know, if you know much about Marxism, you know that they are very against our Western values and, you know, particularly our American values. They are very threatened by the family unit because when families are strong, the country is strong and we're united. And we have strong values, we are patriotic, and when we're united, we're very strong. We're a force to be reckoned with. And Marxism wants to destroy that so that we can be weak and more easier controlled, and basically just rely on the state instead of our families and our relationships.
Sure. Now you were breaking up a little bit earlier. I heard you mention social justice warriors. I heard you mention feminism. How do those? How's that come into play here?
Yeah. I'm gonna say I'll try to keep my tangents kind of short so that you can, you know, ask me more questions. But basically, feminism is feminism is Marxism, right? It's you know, Marxism is feminism, feminism is Marxism, and liberalism. They're all basically the same, just under the guise of something different. And feminism is destroying the family unit because, once again, they want people to be control. They want basically a socialist nation and a secular nation. So part of a big goal of feminism was to remove the father, remove the husband, send women to work, be a part of the paying tax body, and break up the family unit, right? So, and they're largely succeeding in those goals. And if you read any, most feminist literature, it's all about man bashing and how men are useless and women are better than men, and men are not to be trusted. Men are part of the evil patriarchy. And what they've done is they convinced women, they sold women on a lie that men are protecting or providing or caring for women, not out of care, not out of love or generosity, but out of greed and selfishness, and because they want to control women and oppress them, which couldn't be further from the truth, right? But they convinced women to drop men's hands, and men and women are natural allies, and join this sisterhood instead, that the sisterhood is better and will provide for their needs better. And the state as well will provide for their needs better than men, which is very, very sad. And you can see the tragedy of that in our state of relationships right now. Men and women are kind of on opposite sides, and they're more like enemies than lovers and partners right now. Have you noticed?
I have. And now you mentioned how feminism does this. Do you think that this has always been the goal of feminism, or would you draw a distinction between first wave feminism and modern feminism?
There's a lot of people that would say that the entire master plan all along was to divide us like this. I have mixed feelings on that. I know obviously the first wave of feminism the goal was to just have women have equal rights and opportunities and to be allowed to vote and to be allowed to own property. And it wasn't until the second wave of feminism, the feminine mystique was the Marxist goals, and the Marxist ideologies really came out full force. So, I do believe that they may have started with good intentions or positive intentions, but we never know. I mean, these Marxists are really clever and insidious. So, just when you think that you have the plan figured out, they often have plans that were devised way before we realized it. And most of these quote unquote social movements are not just organic uprisings that just happen to come about. They're usually orchestrated and planned from above, right? Just like the march of our lives. I don't believe that just happened organically. It's pretty obvious.
Absolutely not. There's big money in these movements. And anything that gets national coverage like that doesn't just come out of the
right.
organic woodworks. I don't think anyone can.
But it's also like, don't you feel that, a lot of people would argue and say that, well, the 1950s, why do you want to go back to the 1950s? Me personally, I always think that I was born in the wrong era because I'm a millennial, but I totally feel like I just relate more to the 1950s way of life. But women that are liberals say, women were oppressed then, and it was so much misogyny then. But I actually feel that from talking to a lot of older people, and just from observation, it feels like women and men were more respectful to each other then, and they're more disrespectful to each other now.
All right, and so when you talk about the 1950s, I sort of imagine traditional gender roles.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the blurring or the blending of gender roles, or the abolishment of gender roles in some cases that you see on the left, with a lot of times associated with transgenderism or just what they refer to as non-binary?
Yeah, I have a lot to say on that topic. But again, it is destroying the family unit, and it's destroying the relationship between men and women, the natural relationship between men and women. Once again, this whole gender mainstreaming is an agenda. It didn't just come about. It definitely is an agenda. And we can tell what it's an agenda easily by how much they're pushing it. You notice 2-3 years ago, it wasn't pushed very much. And now it's like every time you turn on the TV, there's some transgender propaganda or commercial or something like that. So It's definitely true. It's definitely a push. And, what they want is they want to create chaos. They want to create confusion, which this definitely creates. And there's a number of different implications that it has on society and our relationship is if we continue to go down this route. Number one, if there's no differences between males and females and gender will be totally irrelevant, then men and women no longer feel attracted to each other. Right. So that obviously it's a huge population control tactic in a way, because there's going to be a severe reduction of romantic relationships and marriages if there's little attraction. We need sexual polarity, which is our opposite, masculine and feminine energy. That's what we're attracted to naturally. So,
all right, sexual polarity. I can get on board with that, DeAnna.
Right, sexual polarity. Masculine's attracted to feminine, feminine's attracted to masculine. And we don't have, if everyone's walking around blurred, like, you're kind of a half man, half woman situation and vice versa, it's not going to create that feeling of passion or sexual chemistry. It's like Michael Bolton's When a Man Loves a Woman. What are we going to change the lyrics to? When a binary person loves a binary person?
Oh, man, don't give anyone any ideas.
And, and the other thing that is very clever and insidious about it is when they keep on adding new letters to LGBT. Now it's LGBTQIA. And I can almost guarantee that within the next year, there's probably going to be 3 more letters added to it. So when they do that, they try to act like they're doing this for inclusiveness and to promote tolerance. But let's just call a spade a spade. That's not really what they're doing, although they always disguise their intentions as that. It's really to marginalize heterosexual people as much as possible. And anyone who believes in God or Christian values or even just truth, that there are actually only 2 genders, male and female, that those people are now considered hatred, hate speech and bigotry, and they're transphobes, homophobes. And they're being marginalized more and more, right? Like they're making it seem like anyone who's just heterosexual or cisgender is abnormal. Like you're weird, you're boring.
Yeah, like it's an opposite world.
Yes, yeah, we're living in bizarro world right now. And it's very clever because if anyone just stands up for those truths, like raises their hand, actually I think there's only 2 genders, or I believe God created us as man and woman. No, all of a sudden you're labeled as a bigot or your hate speech. It's very insidious. So Christians now become the new villains of the world.
Yeah, I really do think that the left has been pushing that narrative for at least a decade, probably much longer. But we talked. You mentioned LGBT. What are your thoughts on gay marriage, and can you have a healthy or a stable family unit in with a gay marriage?
That's a great question. So let me be clear about my beliefs, because I could be misinterpreted. I'm tolerant and I'm accepting of gays, of LGBTQIA. I have friends that are transgender. I have friends that are gay. So I'm completely accepting and tolerant. And I think us as a country, we've come to a place of great acceptance and intolerance for all different people of all different sexualities. But what I think is let's not lie and say that that a homosexual family, where 2 mothers or 2 fathers, or even 2 gender fluid people who identify as gender fluid, that's not actually the ideal as far as what's going to create the most successful and healthy children and what's going to create the most healthy and successful relationship. It's been proven that the traditional nuclear family with a man and a woman as a mother and father, that is producing the healthiest relationships and the healthiest, most well-balanced, well-adjusted children. Like this is proven beyond any shadow of a doubt. I have a lot of research in my book that it is the most advantageous. Now, can the other families work? Yeah, of course they can work. But when we go around as a culture telling everyone that, it's just as healthy and natural and successful if you have any kind of variation of a traditional family like LGBTQIA or gender fluid people, it's a downright lie. And it's very misleading. And let's not say that that's the norm, right? Because it's not. And I do believe that, I think that two people in love should be able to, get married or have a ceremony. And I don't think that that's wrong. I want people to be able to celebrate their love. It's just that there's a difference between where we were maybe 20 years ago or 30 years ago, where we just, these people weren't flamboyant about it. Gays would just wanted to live their life in peace, but not necessarily shove their lifestyle in people's faces and force people to accept that. And now we're at a place where we're shoving it, not we, but, mainstream media and whatnot, leftists are really shoving this in people's faces and almost saying, hey, you better get on board with the LGBTQIA gender fluid agenda, or else you're going to be alienated and marginalized.
All right. Now, you cited some information about the nuclear family, producing success in the family and in children. Given that, do you think that gay couples should be able to adopt children?
That's a great question. Putting me on the hot seat.
It's right now, DeAnna.
It's right now. Gosh, I really feel like they should be able to bring joy into their life. And if that's their prerogative, if they want to bring a child into it, I think they should. I haven't really spent too much time thinking about it, but I probably should be very clear, because my heart goes out to them. Like I want them to be able to have a normal life or a semi-normal life. And I want them to be able to have a child if they want to, but, and then there's some studies that say LGBTQIA are more prone to pedophilia or things like that. And, I don't necessarily want to go down that rabbit hole, but, I don't know. It's a really tough question.
I appreciate your candidacy.
Yeah,
that it is.
It's a hard thing to say. It's a very tough thing to say. What I have the issue with, like I said, it's the shoving it in our faces constantly. And now, Disney wants to create a gay Disney princess, a gay leading Disney character. And now there's gay characters in children's cartoons and things. And this is what I have an issue with. Like, if you push it in the mainstream and insert it in children's cartoons and insert it in the classroom and kindergarten and stuff, it's normalizing it. And I don't think that should be what children view as a normal relationship. And all of a sudden questions and adult concepts start inserting their way into children's minds, and like, God, I sound so like old fashioned even saying this, but it's just like, I don't think children should be exposed to these very adult concepts of gender identity and one's sexuality that young. And that's the problem.
All right. Sure. I could certainly see the point you're making here. I do want to get to some questions from our listeners. I think we have one gentleman here who's really looking for some help, DeAnna.
Okay.
JJ, he wants to know, how does one get out of the friend zone?
Great question. I help my men get out of the friend zone all the time. So that's a great question. There's a lot of things that I do, and it, depending on the specific situation, but I have an acronym that I use with my male clients called BALLS. Okay. Hope I could say that on your programming. But balls, basically, we all know what it means when a guy has balls. It's a physical thing, and it's also a metaphorical thing. Right. And a lot of basically the essence of when a guy is getting into the friend zone, what's always the case, what they all have in common is they're lacking in basically displaying their balls. They're not being bold enough. They're not being sensual enough. And they're not really taking the lead so that a girl feels his masculinity. She doesn't feel his sexual attraction towards her. So
she doesn't feel his balls.
She doesn't feel his balls, metaphorically. I'm not saying go, put your balls on a girl or something like that. But what I'm saying is I have an acronym for balls. Okay. And every guy should know this, because this is what's lacking every time when a guy is having trouble attracting a woman or he's falling in the friend zone a lot.
Let's hear it.
Let's hear it. Okay. The B stands for boldness. You got to be bold if you're a man, or else she's going to think you're a wuss. The A stands for being a man of action and approaching women. So you want to be always the one initiating the approach. You can't just let a girl, fall into your lap, because she's not going to, for the most part. But being a man of action is very attractive to women. Women love men of action. They want something and then they go after it. I have a little motto I use with my clients. Winners don't wait. Procrastinators are forever masturbators. Okay, so the BA. The L stands for leadership. Taking the lead with women is very important, and taking the lead in life. Again, women are attracted to leaders, and they're attracted to power on a certain level. It's in our nature. It's part of that sexual attraction that's primal. The other L stands for laughter. Making a woman laugh is the greatest aphrodisiac. So if you are not consistently attracting women, it may have to do with your sense of humor. You're not really making her laugh or smile. And then the S stands for sexual energy. What is missing for a lot of guys when they keep falling in the friend zone is they stifle their sexual energy. And especially now with feminism constantly shoving it in men's faces that me too, and, don't sexually harass me, don't objectify women. Guys are raised to think that they have to stifle that any kind of sexual attraction that comes up. And they have to be super respectful towards women and treat them like gentle flowers. And that's just wrong. A guy has to be in touch with his sexual energy. And he does have to be somewhat aggressive sometimes in order for a woman to feel that he's an alpha and he's a leader and he can take charge. Otherwise, she'll just think he's kind of a wuss or a beta male. And that's just the antithesis of how female attraction works. So it all boils down to your balls, guys.
All right, JJ, I hope you're taking notes. Because DeAnna, JJ also goes on. He wants to know, what are your thoughts on nerds and nerd culture, and are nerds doomed to be lonely forever?
Are they doomed to be lonely forever? Well, I don't think that they're lonely they should be lonely forever. I think that I work with a lot of nerds, actually, and a lot of engineers and whatnot. I don't think that they're doomed. I think that, first of all, you can be whatever you want to be. If you're a nerd, if you love Comic-Con, if you like dressing up in furries, whatever.
All right, yeah.
Whatever you're into, anime. But you got to own it and know, this is what I'm into, and it's going to be my kind of sexy. And whatever you're into, here's my little secret. You've got to show the contrast. Women like contrast. So if you're kind of a nerd, that's cool. Own it. And just be confident about it. But then have a contrasting side that women don't expect. Like, it's unpredictable. So you're a nerd, but you work out a lot and you're kind of buff. Or you're a nerd and you also play the guitar. You're a nerd and you also ride a motorcycle. You're a nerd, but you're also kind of a daredevil and you love traveling or doing skydiving or something. Now, I'm not saying you have to do something that crazy or extreme.
Just don't make it your whole identity.
Don't make it your whole identity. Have a contrasting side that women don't expect. And then when you throw it out there, they're like, whoa, that's kind of hot. I didn't expect that. There's a contrast. Women like contrast. Be a nerd all you want, but have that contrast.
All right, yeah, I can definitely see that point, because I really do agree that so many of these nerds or these comic book folks, you really become a one-dimensional personality when you don't have anything other than that culture is who you are.
Exactly. And then I also have to say, like-minded people are important. So if that's if you love that, then spend time in those communities, but look for women in those communities. I know a lot of guys that have actually met their girlfriends on gaming sites or at Comic-Con or at some of these conventions, because they're like-minded, and then they don't have to hide that from each other. They can just be like, okay, we're both nerds in this area.
All right, and I've got one more question from JJ here.
From JJ,
yeah, like I said,
gotta love JJ.
He really needs a lot of advice. He wants to know, does size matter?
I love it. I love this candid talk on a Friday night. It's hashtag Frisky Fridays. So size does not matter for the most part. And that's my caveat. I'll say that for the most part, guys spend way too much time obsessing over their size when it's stupid because you can't really control it. It's like your height. There's no point in obsessing about it. Just wear a little bit taller shoes. With your penis, just try to make sure you're at least hard, because that makes a difference. If you're small and like flaccid and have a hard time getting it up all the time, that's obviously going to make an impact, right? But if you do what you can to at least be like, you have a lot of stamina and you have no issues getting it up, you can take, you have a lot of testosterone and aggression, and you know how to use it with her, you like really focus on connecting with her during sex. You don't just get your sexual instruction from porn, because that's very different. Women do not like to have sex that feels like a porn star. They like to have sex that feels intimate, because that's what's hot for them for the most part. And, it's just something that like guys spend way too much time there. You should focus all that energy on developing your sense of humor more, developing your balls more in the acronym that I told you, leadership, assertiveness, action, and boldness, and making your life more interesting so that she's naturally more attracted to you. And then the penis size won't really matter, as long as it's not like the size of a thumb, then you're going to lower your options a little bit. But still, it's just one of those things guys spend way too much time obsessing over, that girls think about so many other things during sex that has less to do with that. We really like, what makes amazing sex is the connection that we feel with him inside and outside the bedroom.
All right. Well, I hope JJ is a new man now. I hope he's reborn after all of this great information you've given him, DeAnna. So.
Yes, JJ. If he still wants coaching, we can work together.
All right. We'll let him know. He's listening now. I'm sure he's going to have more questions for you. But I want to take some questions from some other listeners. Arsash in 1980 wants to know, what do you think of the Stormy Daniels, the Stormy Daniels situation?
Stormy Daniels.
Did Trump hit that?
Yes. Oh, what about Trump hitting that? I didn't catch that last.
Did Trump hit that?
I really don't know if Trump hit that or not, because the left has all sorts of tricks up their sleeve, and I don't know. It's they could have easily just made this up. But even if he did hit that, let's just say he did. I think she even admitted this was not a Me Too situation. It was consensual. It was a one time, and she's a freaking porn star, right? And she, by the way, kind of looks like a man. I think she kind of looks like a man, but that's besides the point. I think the left just wants to throw everything they're grasping at straws to discredit him and to continue their smear campaign. So I don't know if it's really true or not, but it's unfortunate because Melania is so beautiful. But I don't know. Here's my thoughts on this, and this is really bad. I hope he didn't hit that, but at the same time, this is one of the most powerful men in the world, one of the richest men in the world. Okay. And with power and riches, as a man who's also an alpha male, you're going to have women throwing themselves at you constantly. I mean, constantly. These women are, they get more and more sleazy, I think, when they're around richer guys. They're half the problem. So if he had one-time sex with a porn star consensually 12 years ago, and that's the worst that they could dig up on him, I'm actually, it's probably better than you would expect for most guys of that stature. Not to say it's excusable. It's never excusable to have an affair, ever.
All right, would you say that Trump has balls?
What?
Would you say that Trump has balls?
Definitely Trump has balls. He's got bigger balls than Texas. And, and he says what's on his mind, and he's funny. He actually checks off all those boxes for women, right? He is funny. He shoots from the hip. He is very real, and he doesn't censor himself. And that's another part of the balls, is being authentic. Girls are attracted to guys who are more alpha males because they at least, you can like them or hate them, but they usually just tell it like it is without sugarcoating and censoring themselves so damn much. And that's something that just women find very attractive, is that rawness.
All right, and you did mention earlier that it's not acceptable to have an affair. Touch My Stuff wants to know: do you help married guys find the perfect girlfriend?
And not if they're married. No, no. Not if they're married. No way. Why? Why not just work things out with your wife? Put all that energy into her. Put all that energy into making things more intimate and romantic with her.
All right, and sort of on the same topic as affairs, what are your thoughts on this? Now, this is a very leftist topic. Liberals are big time into this. What are your thoughts on cuckoldry?
Okay, so cuckoldry is basically the practice of having multiple people, right? Like one guy sharing or two guys sharing one girl.
To a sense, I think generally it is one man who has a significant partner or a significant other who goes out and has sex with other women or other men.
Other men. Okay, so specifically, it's another man.
Typically.
I think that's both.
I think you might have cut out there again. Do we still have you, DeAnna? All right, sorry about that, folks. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty here.
Can you hear me?
All right, there you are.
Okay. Did you lose me?
We lost you. I know you started. You said that it is bull, and then you cut out.
Oh,
so,
yes.
Perfect censor.
I think it's bull crap because I just feel like there's more of this gender fluidity. Choose a side. You know, I feel like you're either straight or you're gay, and I don't feel like just being blurry like that. What that does is just ruin any last sense of commitment. Because it's just like typical liberalism. There's no personal responsibility or accountability. There's no sense of commitment. At least with typical monogamous heterosexual relationships, you just commit or you don't. But with this blurring of lines, like you go have sex with guys and then come back and you get your girlfriend too, it takes away that sanctity of love and what relationships are for, I think. And it makes it completely not intimate and all just about functional sex, just sexual gratification. And I think that we should have some level of commitment. I think commitment makes for successful families and successful. So, yeah, I just think it's more of that same kind of sexual hedonism and YOLO, you only live once, that kind of thing.
All right. I think most conservatives would probably agree with you. Now, you mentioned earlier, while we were talking about the nerd culture, that sort of thing, you did say that it's okay if you're a furry. Do you want to clarify on that?
Yes, I was really joking, but I've seen people that have all different kinds of hobbies. Like they're into dressing up like a furry. I don't know if you've heard of that, or they've they dress up in like these anime costumes and go to these like fantasy festivals and stuff. So that's more what I was talking about.
All right, so nothing wrong with dressing up as giant animals. Nothing, right? That's all fun.
I think it's weird, but if that's what makes them happy, then sure. I just think as long as, I'm for more traditional relationships that are, heterosexual monogamous relationships. I don't like the whole polyamory, polygamy, multiple boyfriends and girlfriends and cuckoldry. I'm not into that. So as long as it's not that, and if it's just like a hobby, I guess that's fine.
All right, DeAnna. So let's expand that a bit. I know somebody who, whenever he goes out on a date with a woman, he makes her wear cat ears. Is that weird?
I do think that's pretty weird. Is that like the only way he'll be attracted to her?
You know what? You'd have to ask him, DeAnna.
Is it JJ?
No. All right, DeAnna, it's me. I'll admit.
Well, I knew it.
But I'm not JJ.
I know.
I just like cat ears. Is that weird? Come on.
You know what? If it floats your boat, as long as you're not doing anything illegal.
All right, fair enough. So, as far as Donald Trump goes, you're clearly a conservative. When did you first was Donald Trump your first pick for the presidential election? And if not, when did you get on the Trump train?
Question. Yes. As far as like who was out there as the candidate, he definitely was my first pick. About him. And I immediately loved, and I even liked him before this. I liked him before he ran for president. But I like that we needed a businessman, someone who actually knows business, someone who actually is great at finances, how to take risks. And of course, someone who has balls, someone who can be really tough, because Obama was just horrible in all those ways. He was such a softie, and he was also destroying our country. So we needed someone who can like really grab the reins and right the ship, who can just throw political correctness out the window, did not care about people's feelings. He just did what was right and did what was right for the country. So that's why I gravitated towards him. And then I would, before I even for sure was on the Trump train, I think I was watching a speech of his, one of his speeches or rallies, and then I watched one of Hillary's. I was like falling asleep in it, and I was so unmotivated. And it took maybe 10 minutes. I was watching it, and I just couldn't watch it anymore. I couldn't get into it. And then I flipped on to Trump's, and I was like, oh my God, he's saying everything that I'm thinking right now. And the problems with it. He's talking about locking Hillary up. He's talking about all the things we need to do to get our country back on track, and voicing my grievances that I've had for the last 8 years. That I've had for the country, the vision I had for it. I felt like he was speaking to me. And when I watched him, I just was so like excited again and proud. And I had not felt proud of a president or a would-be president, nor have I felt proud of our country in a long time. It really has been a long time since I felt that sense of pride and like patriotism. And so when I watched that speech, I was like, oh, wow, I am on the Trump train. This is what it is.
Yeah, I think a lot of us agree that Trump really made, like you said, restored pride in being an American again. And I think that's maybe more important than any of the policies he's implemented.
And then I was, I live in LA, so it's liberal as hell. And most of my friends, up until recently, but most of my friends were like liberals and feminists and everything, and very anti-Trump. And it was just so much negativity over and over again all the time. And then I went to a Trump rally, and this was before he became president, but I went to a Trump rally, and I was like, wow, I feel like I'm with family. Everyone's waving their American flags proudly, wearing patriotic T-shirts, patriotic clothing, and you can just be so excited about America again and amongst patriots that I fell in love, and you can't turn back once you've been to once you've been around Trump supporters and that kind of patriotism and positivity, how can you go back to that disgusting negativity that leftists continue to hold with them all the time? They just like fester in this hatred.
I don't know. I know I could never do it again. I say that as a reformed Democrat.
Reformed Democrat. That's very interesting.
All right, yeah. Vintov, he wants to know, what are your thoughts on online dating?
Dating, I've met a lot of people through online dating, and I incorporate that with my clients. I incorporate both online dating and offline dating as a comprehensive approach because I do feel like it works. You, just like anything, you have to have a strategy, the right strategy. You have to have the right pictures. There's a strategy for getting pictures that get women's responses and that get you noticed and get you dates. There's a strategy for the right kind of communication online and the right profile, things that are in place. And I take care of all that with my clients. You can get a lot of relationships and dates from online. And, the other thing, it's kind of harder because it's saturated. Hard for guys at bars too. I mean, no matter where you go, you're going to have competition, but don't stand out at bars and have no luck at bars also have no luck on their online dating sites. So we just have to teach you, how to make yourself stand out and be visible, both online and offline. And if you know the right strategy, you can get a lot of dates online. I think that it's important. I think you should do it. Kind of a joke at this point, but I think Bumble and Match.com, good sites.
All right, thank you for those recommendations, DeAnna. Theory wants to know, do long-term relationships work long-term? Or long-distance relationships, I'm sorry.
Long distance. Well, I've been in a few myself, so I think that they can work depending on a couple of factors. I think depending on how long of that long distance it is. If it's 1 hour away, 3 hours versus like 6 or 10 hours of a difference, that kind of plays a difference. You can see each other once every 2 or 3 weeks versus once every few months. That plays a factor in your success rate of a light at the end of the tunnel. You need to know who is going to be moving and when you're going to be moving. Like, what's the plan? What's the future? And I believe that needs to happen within like a year, or else if it keeps dragging on longer than a year, long distance, that success rate goes down pretty dramatically. And, you start losing that motivation when you don't have a vision that you're both working towards together, and that vision isn't coming anytime soon.
All right, interesting.
Yeah, you've got to be both motivated and committed and also have great communication.
Sure, just like you need to do in the opposite of a long-term relationship or a long-distance relationship, I would assume.
And luckily we have tools now that we didn't used to, like FaceTime and Skype and Discord and everything. So if you stay connected on that daily and you have trust with each other, then, I think that you can keep that up for at least a year and have that light at the end of the tunnel going.
All right. Now, so I imagine you work with a lot of very interesting people, DeAnna,
Yes.
and you got me feeling a little bit depressed by saying my cat ear thing is weird, because everybody here always makes fun of me for the cat ears. But I want to know, DeAnna, what are some of the weirdest people you've worked with?
Interesting. Weirdest people I've worked with.
With the weirdest, not patient dating expert confidentiality being respected, of course.
Of course, I won't be naming names, but I've had people that are like legitimate 50-year-old virgins, and they have never even touched a girl before. And then, when they do, oops, did I lose you?
No, we're still here.
And then when they do, they like start shaking because they're just like so nervous. And they I had one guy that was, God, he was he really got handed a bad deck of cards in life because he was 5'4". Africa. So he had a really weird South African accent. It was like this high voice, bald, glasses, braces. and he was a 40-year-old virgin. So it wasn't like the, and then also he he stuttered and shook his body when he talked. Like, God, normally there's at least one thing I can work with. Like, they're really pretty unflattering looking, but they're funny, or they're tall, or they've got something. But this guy, he had nothing really. Had to really, spend time developing these other areas and making him, somewhat sexy or have some sort of sex appeal and attraction. And it did end up working. We got him a girlfriend later.
What was the trick for him?
Well, I had to, give him a whole new makeover as far as like new clothes, get him stylish. I got him into MMA.
All right.
Kind of developed his inner badass a little bit and made him, at least have some level of sex appeal for some women. So got him into, because at first he was just very strict on his physical type. And I said, we got to expand that a little bit. And what kind of girls are under 5'3"? I got him more into like Latina girls and Asian girls and, expanding his horizons a little bit. So sometimes you just have to be creative. And the reason why I got the furry thing is because I literally did have a client one time that was really into furries.
Oh, did he do all kinds of weird things while in the fursuit?
Yeah, he was definitely into the furry situation. I've had a lot of interesting and weird clients. I'm gonna have to make a list, so next time you ask me that question, I'm gonna have more.
Yeah, we want some juice. Yeah, we want something juicy with these big old weirdos out there, and of course to make us feel more normal.
Absolutely true.
All right, Arsash 1980. He wants to know, what is the biggest mistake women make in the dating game?
Great question. I would say is the biggest mistake for the women population.
I'm sorry, I think you might have cut out the exact word of what you were describing.
Okay, feminism is the biggest mistake for all women. Feminism.
All right.
That, as a whole, but also here's some specific ways that plays out. Number one, women literally think it's attractive to be like demanding towards men and bossy, and they go on dates. They're the lady boss, and I've got lady balls and I'm a lady boss. And they really, the way they present themselves is guys should present themselves. Like they present themselves like this alpha female and aggressive and touting off all their accomplishments and really leading with that accomplishment card. Here's what I've accomplished. Here's the 20 places I've traveled to recently. And here's my resume. And they don't realize that that's not really what attracts guys. For females, women are attracted to power and success or intelligence in men, but men aren't really attracted to that, at least first and foremost. They're attracted to femininity, and they're attracted to ladies, women who dress and act like women. Consciously, completely scare men off and drive them away, or have men treat them like a dude, but not like a woman.
All right, I can definitely agree with you in some parts there. How do you feel about the body positivity movement?
Oh, I love these questions. I think that that's bullshit as well. Like, okay, I'm sorry to be, old school, but once again, it's all about our primal nature. We can pretend that our primal nature does not exist, but it's not going away. Just because we pretend it doesn't go away. And this body positivity is yet another lie from the feminist warriors that, are trying so hard to pretend that these things aren't accurate. Men are attracted usually to women who look feminine. And by and large, and I've been working with guys for like 9 years, and I grew up with a family of 4 brothers and all men. And I've never met a single man who says, I think a girl who's really fat is super sexy. They think that a girl in shape or relatively good shape is attractive. And it's kind of like a low value if a girl is super out of shape or super fat. Not to say that there's not exceptions to every rule. You know, there's always an exception to the rule. But for the most part, guys are attracted to femininity and being in shape. So the body positivity is really just like it's tricking girls into thinking that they can be fat, they can be whatever shape they are. They could not wear deodorant. They could not wear. They're trying to trick. The other part of body positivity is teaching girls not to shave their armpits, not to shave their legs, look, you know, feminine at all, because that's part of the patriarchy, right? That's like subservient to men to dress attractive to men. And I just think that's BS.
All right.
What do you think about it?
Yeah, hey, I'm not the one in the hot seat, DeAnna. Earlier, though, you said that women don't want to have sex like they have in porn. I want to know, what are your thoughts on pornography and the impact that essentially ubiquitous pornography has had on our culture?
Ooh, I have a whole chapter of that in my book, actually, because the porn in our culture has really, I think it's just led to more of the ruin of women and men between each other, because it's made sex really just cheap and all about the physical, and it's replaced human intimacy with porn. You know, it's called a sex drive for a reason. It's when we have a sex drive, it's supposed to, it was there, the purpose was to pursue women or pursue our partner, our significant other. Related to porn, it kills your motivation to, you know, pursue women and pursue your partner. All you want to do, because you can take care of your needs by yourself. Masturbation on porn, it just ruins, it kills that intimacy. So many other factors, you know, it can lead to it's been proven to reduce testosterone levels in men. So erectile dysfunction, diminished attraction.
Oh, no.
I mean, I know guys that are in their 20s that already have erectile dysfunction and need to be prescribed Viagra because of porn addiction. And like, there should be no reason why a man who's in his 20s should have to be prescribed Viagra.
I think you're going to give some of the guys here something to worry about, DeAnna.
Well, I speak the truth, right? I'm just trying to speak the truth, because all we can do is learn the truth, and then we can do something about it. And it sucks to hear that, because I know porn is huge for most men, but it doesn't. And the other thing is it creates these completely unrealistic expectations of women, where men are constantly, when you're watching porn every day, those are porn stars who literally make their entire living around looking perfect and having their bodies and vaginas looking as perfect as possible. Real world, and have sex with real women who don't look exactly like that and who don't look perfect. It's a little bit disappointing to a lot of guys. You know, and they also can't move in all these different positions, nor do they even want to. You know, it's a rude awakening when guys realize that porn, that those kinds of position and the kind of the way that they're having sex is typically not really what most girls actually want.
Or even practical.
No, it's not even practical too. So and then guys need that kind of, they're hooked on it. So they need that stimulation in order to get off with a real woman, which I think it's just tragic. The whole point of sex is so that we can get off with each other, which we can have sex with each other. And that should be gratifying enough. But when a guy can't get off unless he sees porn, because he's so used to that level of extreme stimulation, I don't know. I just think that's like the biggest tragedy of mankind.
All right. We actually have a question from a woman here. Jessie wants to know, she says, I can cook and clean for my man, as well as do anything he wants me to, but how do I get him to actually want to be in a relationship with me instead of just as a maid or, quote, sex slave?
Wow, that's interesting. Well, there's something about what you just told me that actually, I mean, pretty keen, but it made me feel like that you were leading with that card, like that you were leading with how much you can give to a guy by cooking and cleaning and having sex whenever he wants to. that's kind of what you're leading with, instead of receiving from him. Good to be that kind of traditional girl, but what else is there? You know, you want to be giving to a guy when it's earned. And if a girl, you know, by nature, guys are more supposed to be giving at first and women are supposed to be receiving. It's like all we have to do is look at our nature, right? Guys have a penis, it gives to a woman receives. Not to be graphic, but that's how we know what's the natural order of things. Girl switches that order up and gives and gives and gives right up front without having that be earned, without having him give, to have a guy lose a little respect and attraction for you, and he starts devaluing you. It might seem that you probably have other great things to offer, and lead with those things. Lead with making him, you know, laugh, or being feminine, being beautiful, being fun to be around, and holding yourself as a quality woman, but not giving so much right off the bat, letting more and giving him more, you know, in increments. That it shouldn't be like you give him the entire book right off the bat. He should kind of read little chapters of the book. So you still have like, and he holds you in high value. He doesn't feel like he just has the whole cow and the milk for free, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Thank you, DeAnna. We're sort of coming up on an hour here, just about out of time. Is there anything you'd like to say we didn't get a chance to get to?
We covered so many different topics, and actually a lot of different topics. I don't know if you've read my book, but it sounds like it, because we covered so many different topics in my book. No, I just have to say that I feel that the downfall of our American values and our country, it's directly related to the downfall of our country and the downfall of our relationships and our dating life. Can know that our values, our American values that once made this country so great, also are the keys to making our relationships so great again and our love lives great again. Because people back in before 1960s and these movements, they kind of had it right. We can knock on them all we want, but they really, like, obviously their relationships worked. So if we can take some of those lessons, and I talk about the balls and the feminine roadmap and everything, all the keys to attracting men and women in my book, if we can take those lessons and apply it to our life today, we can make love great again, and we can make our country great again.
Fantastic. Let's hope we accomplish both of those tasks, DeAnna. Yeah. Thank you so much.
We need to stick together and not let the liberals kick us down.
Absolutely, DeAnna. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's been a pleasure.